I'm working on a theory of everything, and I want to share that work in progress with you here. I really never expected to do anything like this, but I'm working on a project to say some things, and I'm realizing that you can't really say anything without touching everything because everything is connected to everything and everything is part of everything. So you can't touch anything without touching everything. It's like a fine violin. To touch any part of it is to vibrate the whole of it. You might call this Steve's theory of everything Jewish. I'm certainly working from a decidedly Jewish perspective, but I think with a bit of adaptation, it could apply to any religion and maybe to any civilization or ethos. Naturally, a theory of everything has to begin with nothing. Now, I'm dividing the space of the theory into three main realms. Again, from a very Jewish perspective, and those realms are study, action, and experience. I'll give a few examples of each realm to further explain what I'm talking about. So, in the realm of study, we Jews have the Torah, the Tanakh, the Talmud, indeed, all the great works that are part of our tradition. And we have the traditional emphasis that Judaism places on the importance of learning. Study is certainly a cornerstone of being a Jew. And then, of course, it's not just about what we learn, but it's also about what we do, our actions in life. And so much of what we study is intended to guide our actions. We have a tremendous focus on halakha and the commandments that guide halakha. And we have that mandate for tzedakah, gemilut chasadim, the acts of loving kindness, and tikkun olam, repairing the world. All of this comes under the heading of action. And third, we have the realm of experience. The experience dimension often gets less attention than the other two, but it's definitely a major part of the Jewish tradition. Interestingly, we are keenly aware of the experience dimension when it comes to children, but I think that for adults it sometimes gets less attention. Still, if you look at the number of words in our scriptures and liturgy for joy, simcha is just one of them. And if you think about the Jewish musical tradition, if you consider worship, I don't mean just the ritual, but the feeling of really worshiping together as a community, I think you'll agree that experience is a significant part of it all. So these are the three foundations of my model. And now I want to propose that there's a continuum for each of these areas that ranges from negative, represented by red, to positive, represented by green, with yellow in between. And now I want to suggest that for study, the continuum ranges from rote memorization on one end to the profound insight that arises from deep study at the other. And in between, we have reasoned examination of the material, more than mere rote, but less than deep insight. For action, We have mechanical observance on one side, which going through the motions without consciousness or personal meaning. And then on the other side, we have the wholehearted participation, and particularly when we're talking about Gemilut Chasadim or Tikkun Olam, we have a spirit of kindness and generosity, of truly caring about others. And in between, a sense of duty that's more than just mechanical, but perhaps not deeply and consciously felt. Finally, on the experience continuum, I think we range from fear and guilt on one side to love, which is shorthand for joy, bliss, peace, ecstasy, all of those things. And in between, a measured sense of respect that's more than just fear, but is not really joy either. So, the idea of the theory is that we can use this map to create sort of a heat map for where any person is or where a movement is in the space depicted by the theory. And what I want to suggest is that when it comes to adults, the experience dimension doesn't get so much attention. It kind of fades into the background. The focus is on study and action, and allowing for plenty of individual variations. Most of us tend to be somewhere in this space here. Also, although we're not paying that much attention to it, if we did, I think we would see that a lot of our experience is mainly in the realm of fear and guilt. It's in the background, but it's there. Now, I think we're pretty clear, and I don't think we'd get much argument to say that we'd like to move ourselves in the greenward direction, like this. I think that a lot of energy and attention goes into that. So then the question becomes what happens to our experience? And my concern is that we may be trying to move in a positive direction with our study and action. But if we don't pay attention to our experience, we may still be rooted in that mode of fear and guilt. And the problem is we get used to it, so it doesn't feel like fear, it doesn't feel like anything. But if we really pay attention to what's going on, we may find that there's a lot of that within us. And I think we need to bring experience much more into focus and aim for movement like this. So, this is what I propose is the ideal target. And that's the foundation of the theory. But I want to point out a few more things that are missing so far. First, I think it's important to point out that this whole thing is one unified whole, a single tapestry, if you will. If you touch anything or change it anywhere, you affect it everywhere. That's why it's not a matrix. That's why I didn't draw any lines on this. Now, also, there's a whole other dimension that we have to reckon with, which is the direction of engagement and intention. Now, up to now, I've more or less assumed that we are motivated to be at least somewhere within the space I've described. But that's not always the case. And we have to make room for, well, Yetzer Hatov and Yetzer Hara. So now we're here in the dimension of intention. And again, we can look at each of the three realms on a red, yellow, green map. So in study, intention can range from willful ignorance to keen interest, with casual curiosity, that in between thing. And in the world of action, we range from defiance to complete fidelity, with kind of inconsistency, sometimes on, sometimes off, where many of us are really in between them. In the realm of experience, I can only think of two things to talk about: unconsciousness along the continuum to very aware, very open consciousness. So, really, it's a three dimensional space. This is maybe not a perfect rendering, but I hope it's enough to give you the idea that I'm driving at. Now, something I still haven't accounted for is that major differences of opinion can arrive in each of these areas, maybe especially in the area of halakha, and these differences can be very divisive. Of course, we hope that's not what's going to happen. I think the best way we can avoid that is evolution toward the green. I think that if we can recognize that our similarities are more important than our differences, we have a chance. In the inspiring words of Abraham Lincoln, we are not enemies, we are friends. We must be friends. Ken Yuhi Ratzon.